A preview of Thursday's town council meeting, an update on the Hyannis Armory, and students are back in school. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Monday, April 22nd, 2013. I'm Sarah Colvin. Airport capital improvements, problem property ordinances, and medical marijuana, all items that make an appearance on the agenda for this week's town council meeting. Council did make quick work of most of the capital improvement plan for fiscal 14 earlier this month, but Thursday night, Airport Manager Bud Brialt will appear before the council asking for funding for several projects at the airport. Council will also continue discussion on the remaining problem property ordinances, including rental registration, rental properties, and building and property maintenance. Before the orders of the day begin, State Rep Brian Mantle will speak to council about his plan to rename a Route 6 overpass in Barnstable to recognize veterans and fallen soldiers. Town Council meets Thursday night at 7 o'clock in the Town Hall hearing room. That meeting will air live on Channel 18. Well, the Hyannis Armory on South Street in Hyannis may be empty. No more. Town Manager Tom Lynch tells us that the committee tasked with reviewing requests for proposals for the long empty Armory building has approved a design.
As you know, following a request for proposals for the uses over at the Armory, I appointed a review committee. We only got one valid response. Council President Deb Dagwan, Council Vice President Jessica Rapp-Cassetti, Bill Cronin from the Greater Hyannis Civic Association, Kevin Howard from the Arts Foundation, Janine Marshall, who's at Coastal Community Capital, and Rick Penn from Puritan Clothing Company, kind of representing the downtown businesses, and Joanna Boucher led the whole effort. I went to the first meeting to talk to them about this proposal and listen to their questions, and I realized that I appointed a very good committee because they had a lot of issues that they wanted to bring up to the proposals of the uses for this armory. So they then began that process, and they had meetings where they talked with the proponents. Their idea was to have something called Real Pirates, which is based on the Witter ship, and to have very interactive and not a static but a changing exhibit. And so they then had the proponents in a couple of different times, and then they had another meeting where they brought me in to share their findings. And they had looked at everything from parking to how many jobs it would create, what the exhibits would look like, how would they maintain the historic integrity of the building, would they recognize the Kennedy significant event that took place there. After all of that, they did make a recommendation to me to accept the Real Pirates proposal. I have reviewed that evaluation report that they sent to me. I have accepted that. What that now means is that there'll be a second round of negotiations where we'll really have to sit and negotiate a lease and figure out what the terms and conditions of that lease will be, because that'll have to go to the town council, where they'll have a chance to look at and accept the terms of the negotiations. There's also an issue around that we're exploring as to, this will be a for-profit effort in this town building, and so we may need a legislative change on that legal will be examining. And if all went well and permits are in place and everything went well, that would probably, I think that probably looking at something that'd be opening this time next year if they could, everything could click along with permits and negotiations. So we've cleared one hurdle, and now we'll see if we can put together a package that works for the proponents and for the town.
Lynch says improvements to the building will not be paid for by the town.
I think one thing that appealed to the review committee about this was that all of the investments into the building are being taken by the proponents. Right now, there's a $50,000 per year lease that would come to the payment that would come to the town. Mr. Penn talked a lot about, that if he were entering into a lease agreement, he was doing the square footage dollar amount, but then saying, but normally it falls onto the landlord to do all those capital improvements. In this instance, it's all on their dime. So that's going to be something that I think will, and then with this too, they were to leave the property, all those improvements stay, with the town. So we're hopeful there'll be something that will stimulate the economic in the area, provide an opportunity for young families as well as educational opportunities that are there. But as I say, we've got to look at things like, parking patterns and other lease terms that before it's complete. So we've got a road to go, but I was very pleased with the due diligence that this group brought to it, and because we had the Arts Foundation aspect to it as to how this might fit in with other cultural activities we have in our cultural district, and Janine Marshall was very good on all the financial aspects. But I do have to say that the council president and vice president were very involved. Excellent questions. When I reviewed the materials and saw what had been asked, I could see that they had covered all the bases. So I'm very thankful for them for that effort. And this is National Volunteer Month, and there's something later on this week at the Senior Center. But this is an example of a volunteer group that comes together, brings their expertise to the town for this, in this case, a shorter period of time than some of our longer term volunteers, but each one of these contributes in other ways to our community. So we felt it was a good cross section representative of our town, but at the same time, and interests, but at the same time represent that volunteerism spirit that we're so fortunate to have in Barnstable.
Again, if all goes well, Lynch expects the new museum to be complete by this time next year. We, of course, will keep you up to date here on Barnstable Today. Barnstable students returned to school today after enjoying a week off for April vacation, but that week was darkened by the horrible events in Boston. First, the marathon bombing on Monday, and then the drama and violence surrounding the pursuit and capture of the suspects on Friday. One dead, one alive. Superintendent of Schools Dr. Mary Chkowski says counselors were on hand in the schools today should students or staff need someone to talk to.
I've been in communication with Dr. Gina Hurley, our Director of Student Services, who oversees our counseling program, and our school psychologist. And we have prepared our counselors. Obviously a very tragic situation, and if there are either students or staff who want to discuss this or have feelings about it, maybe have extended family. I know Mr. Clark ran in the marathon as well, and came in about 3 or 4 minutes prior to the bombing going off. So we did have, and I did read in the Cape Cod Times yesterday also, we had a student, I believe it was a graduate, that also ran. So I think even though we may not directly be affected, we certainly are indirectly affected by it. And I think today calling for a moment of silence. I know that the governor has asked for a moment of silence at 2:50 today. I think it's really we want to give staff and students an opportunity. It's such a tragedy, and it was so long. It was a very, very long week for many people. So our prayers and thoughts go out to the families that were injured and killed, and just be grateful for the first responders and all the people that really came together to help.
A number of meetings to tell you about at Town Hall tonight. Community Preservation Committee meets at 5:30 in the hearing room. Renewable Energy at 5:30 there in the Selectmen's Conference Room. The Planning Board meets at 7 in the hearing room, and the Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee meets at 7 o'clock in the Growth Management Conference Room. That's on the 3rd floor. Details and agendas are available at the town's website, town.barnstable.ma.us. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.